Hey guys, this is the gear for today. We're going to keep on going with the Chiseled Face Legacy Titanium Razor, generously loaned by Walden. Thank you so much. And Declaration Grooming B13 knot. Dogwood and Briar Brushworks did the handle. It's been soaking for us a while now, and so it's going to be nice and soft, no problem there. Leviathan from Barrister and Mann. I already have the Leviathan in the glissant base, but this is the Omnibus base. I tried this very soap a couple shaves ago, and then I tried the Omnibus base in the new melange scent. Didn't really care for the scent on melange. It has a spice in there, probably the bay. After I looked at the scent notes, I thought it wasn't like cloves and allspice will kind of set me off a little bit. I just don't enjoy those scents, but I think maybe the bay is what's in the melange that kind of just makes it to where I don't really enjoy the scent. Just a personal subjective thing. Gillette Platinum with just a few uses on it is what we're going to be putting in the titanium razor today. My previous try was with the Nacet blade. I did scoop out a little bit of the Leviathan. The first time I ever used it, I used pretty much a 1/4 teaspoon, and it didn't give me tons of lather. Then I used almost a 1/2 teaspoon, and it gave me too much lather. So one of the things I want to do is figure out with Omnibus how much soap it really does take to get me with a shave. Neat looking base plate there. Kind of went with the whole slot concept. There's enough bulk in this handle where it doesn't feel like a light razor, and actually the head as well has got a little bit of weight to it, and so I'm really glad about that. If this was hollow or if this was a thinner razor, then I'd find myself pulling it through my hair, and I wouldn't really enjoy that as much like aluminum razors tend to do for me. Today is also the first shave I'm doing with a cool pad underneath. One of those work pads that companies might put at a workstation where people have to stand for a long time. Well, that's kind of what I got going on here, and it feels like luxury. So that'll be fun. So yesterday evening would have been my 1 day of growth, and now it's not the evening yet, but it's almost. And so maybe a little over 1.5 days of growth is what we're looking at here. And I tell you what, yesterday evening, which would have been 1 day, didn't feel like 1 day. And so I think maybe this razor gave me a closer cut than I usually get. Even in other areas of my face. I think it did a great job. At least that's the way it seems. So we have the amount. This time I decided to kind of go halvesies. I did the 1/4 teaspoon plus a little bit of rounded soap there. So I'm going to press that in the bottom of the bowl here. And there we go. A little over 1/4 teaspoon. A lightly rounded 1/4 teaspoon. And I like to take that little bit of soap that's on my finger and just kind of spread it around my face. All right. You can kind of feel the slickness that way just a little bit. I'm going to get my face wet. All right, let's mix up this lather. Shake a lot of the water. This brush holds a good bit of water. It's a 28 millimeter knot, and so it's got a lot of capacity to hold water. All right. The coffee and the kind of woody notes and stuff really coming up to me here. I really enjoy the scent on this, and something I noticed as I was curious about the Omnibus progress. I knew that Leviathan was the first soap to be released as Omnibus, I believe. But it seems after I reviewed Will's website, Barrister and Mann, that he's really been busy in producing soap, because most of his selection out there that was Excelsior, most of it has already been converted to Omnibus. I'm going to have to do an Excelsior Omnibus comparison sometime. I think the Omnibus is going to be easier to load, but you know, they just often a soap will just have different types of lather, and it might be fun to see if the feel of the lather with the Excelsior is different in any way than Omnibus. So now let's start adding a little water. I'm going to go ahead and kind of be generous at first and add about 15, 16 milliliters, because I'm pretty confident I'm going to need that much. This is an interesting soap base because it's a little harder to read when you're in the bowl with it, because as you're stirring and you still need to add more water, it's very low and gluey. And it needs more water. And then if you have a dense brush like this one, what I experienced the other day was simply that the brush hadn't really combined a lot of the water and soap yet, and it just needed extra time of mixing like I'm doing now to get the kind of the wet slurry that was outside of the brush, to kind of get it to combine in with the soap saturated brush fibers. And then everything kind of came together and did a great job. And the soap is on the bottom of the bowl here, and it's not coming up super quickly. This is a soft tipped brush, and in a way it's not a big deal, because I'm going to be adding the water anyway. I'm going to spend some time working with it, and so it's not like I need it to come together quicker. But that's just kind of a little side note there. I think almost all of it's has been picked up by now, but I think there's might be a little bit more left. We don't have a ton of lather created. And you can see, look how gluey it is, how kind of wet and sloppy it is. So now let's just give it a good minute or two of work. And you can see how there are strings and strands, perhaps, because it's just such a low structure lather. As I'm working it up, I'm just seeing these kind of strands, almost like a melted cheese sometimes when I'm moving the brush around in it. Now the good news is, once you get it on your face and you work it around for a little while, you're going to know if you've got it right. It'll have a drier, pastier feel. It'll have a thicker appearance. I don't know if as you're watching the video, if you're able to see kind of that stringiness. And see, I haven't had any more water in a while, and so the lather's just thickening up. Why don't we go ahead and use it? Let's just see if we can Just try to see some landmarks there. See, look how kind of stringy that was. How a long peak there. Melted marshmallow cream is kind of how it's acting like. I may actually need to add more water. Let us, in fact, add just a little bit more. And I think you'll be ready to go. You know what, I'm seeing a little stringiness. I bet it's because I've got a badger bristle down there that's come out of the knot. I mean, look at that flat wall that's just kind of falling down right there. It's not holding itself up on the side of the bowl at all. Yeah, plenty of lather here, it looks like. So maybe the first time I tried it where I used a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe I was just wrong. Maybe I didn't give it enough mix time. We'll see. All right, got my face wet. Let us work this beautiful lather in. I have used this brush a few times now, and it is big. 28 millimeter, and it's got a big splay. Very all-encompassing. Well, I think that I did not run it too thick this time. You can see kind of how got kind of a translucent, very light lather. I don't think I'll be adding any more water. But also, yeah, look, it's kind of drippy a little bit, but we need to make sure that we gather up like that good lather on the side of the brush. So the viscosity there, while it's so wet, is maybe going to be, the landmark to look for. I'm going to dab back into the lather bowl and get some more. Been very happy with the performance and the slickness of the Omnibus in all of the shaves I've done with it. Painting strokes side to side like that. And see, it's not gathering up very much in my goatee, so this may be on kind of the wet side of perfect. It's a little on the messy side, as we can kind of see. There are some guys who this is how they want their lather. Definitely a performance lather. It's going to give really nice hydration and slickness. But this is a quality soap, and so even though it may be more thin than you like, I definitely think you should give it a shot if you ever happen to have a lather like this, because it'll still work out great in terms of the performance of your shave. All right, just a little on the messy side. That'd be the only reason why I might want to take this kind of lather, or just a hair dryer, just to kind of avoid the mess. All right, so Gillette Platinum. And I think you said this was the twisted pineapple handle, something like this. The waist right here was a question mark to me, and after the first shave, I can tell you that it works great. There is the resting points for your other parts that help with stability. It is a little narrow right there, and it can I've seen razors with narrow parts right there that you don't have quite as good of a control because there's not as much to grab. But you just kind of either I'll move my grip down into the grippy areas. It just wasn't really a problem for me the first time I used it. All right, on almost 2 days of growth, moving through the hair easily, no tugging. And a lot of people when using this razor say, you know, the magic happens when you ride the cap, and I don't really like riding the cap yet. I have not tried that technique very much yet. But as you can see, these guys, these little safety bars stick out quite a bit. I think part of the character of this razor is that it almost helps you to ride the cap, even if you don't mean to. I just usually don't enjoy having to worry about my angles, you know, to ride the cap, because often it's not an intuitive feel. I've had to do it on some razors. The Charcoal Goods was one where it was actually a much nicer razor to me. The standard Charcoal Goods, if I rode the cap, you know, it made it palatable, but I just didn't want to do that all the time, and so I sold it. It was an aggressive, and that was even the level 1 head, and it was just too aggressive for me. Just the way it is with some folks, right? And rinse. That did a very nice job cutting through that growth. Just not a problem at all. I think it would be even more comfortable if I had a 1-day growth, but that just, it breezed through the hair. So this looks like a great blade for this particular razor. So the Gillette Platinum, for me at least, works really well. This is giving me the impression that I may want to stick with just 2 passes, because I think I'm going to have the cut that I want after just 2 passes. I think that's maybe how efficient this guy is. I do have a little feeling of kind of tenderness, some very faint razor burn kind of my neck area. Cross grain now. Yeah, definitely a performance lather. Getting wonderful slickness here. It's messy. Not very much soap is going into my rinse cup because it's all falling onto my shirt. My neck area is where I really feel like I need to be careful with this razor. I think it could probably bite me, give me some really good razor rash if I was careless with it. Just kind of has that feel to it. And there we go. Yeah, we still have wonderful residual slickness here, you know, secondary slickness. Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, really, maybe just a touch up. In terms of closeness, I think just a touch up on the neck is all we need. We don't even need to go against the grain. Even if I were a person who likes to go against the grain, I don't feel like I need to at all. So this is an efficient shaver. After a little rinse there, well, it looks like a little bit more than quarter teaspoon is kind of the perfect amount. I could do another pass with what's left in the bowl and what's on the brush, maybe even 2 if I really had to. And to me, that's about the right amount of margin that I like to have. Now, for some people, this guy really might be a brainless shaver where they don't have to think about angles too much. But for me, it's not that. I do have to keep them in mind. And there we go. Now, I think that is maybe a closer shave than I've been able to get with this razor. I think maybe I was a little bit more careful with my technique this time. And so that let me get a little closer in this area here. I know maybe the first time I tried it, after 3 passes, I still had some tips that were visible here just a little bit. And I didn't want to go back and get them because of that kind of risk of irritation. And in fact, I am feeling a little tender here, almost like a blend between tenderness and itchiness, that you might get because of a razor that's really kind of on the slightly on the aggressive side. Let me get a good rinse. Another thing is I'm really happy that only a little bit more than a quarter teaspoon was all Omnibus needed to give me more than 3 passes of lather. It's most of the soaps that I really enjoy need a lot less soap for that same amount, a lot less than a quarter teaspoon, whereas this guy likes a quarter teaspoon or a little bit more, but at least he's not wasteful. This kind of, to me, I think puts it in the same usage category as Holy Cow. I believe Holy Cow likes a little bit more than a quarter teaspoon. There are some soaps out there, I think, that you could do 1/8 of a teaspoon. A tiny amount of soap is going to get you plenty of lather. So yeah, here we are. I did 3 passes on my neck, just basically 2 on my cheeks, and I feel a little bit of that kind of tenderness, for sure. And because there are a ton of razors out there, yeah, you can see just a little bit of redness. Because there are a bunch of razors out there that can get me an almost as good shave with a lot more comfort, then maybe that's why I wouldn't choose to have this razor. But I'll tell you what, in terms of the modern, aggressive shavers, this might be one that's almost as comfortable as you can get, perhaps. Definitely kind of put it near that category. But it is, the mild, very tiny mild irritation that I'm getting here, it makes me not want to do a 3rd pass. And if I do happen to have an area that might need to be touched up in the more tender neck areas, I might be tempted just to skip it because of the risk of irritation. So this is definitely an experience where I am, okay, it's kind of starting to build up a little bit, the razor burn a little bit. So I'm not going to say tiny anymore, but not a lot, but just enough to where it makes you want to think about not using that razor as much as if you have others in your arsenal. In the end, we used up 22 milliliters, 23 milliliters of water, something like that. And as you saw, we had a very drippy lather. I could have helped things a little bit by dabbing off some of the rinse water between passes. I kind of want a balm. And I have been wearing today on my wrists, I've been wearing Labyrinth from Southern Witchcrafts, and it's not super strong. 1 spray on each wrist, and it's around me a little bit, but it's always there when I go to smell it. But it doesn't quite encompass me in terms of intensity like the Damocles from Mammoth. I put that on the other day, and that was with me for a long time, just on my wrists. I almost felt like if I could put both my wrists together and receive 1 shot for both my wrists and have half of a spray on each wrist, that might have been my preferred amount. It was a little bit strong at first. I'm interested in trying that. I'm going to keep wearing Damocles and give it a shot to see if my nose picks up more things with more exposure to it. It almost was a little disconcerting in some respects. Not disconcerting, but it just had a scent that I just didn't warm up to right away. The main kind of the main part of it, I don't really know how to describe that type of scent. I think maybe if I had to say, maybe in the oud family. Normally I like oud a lot. I'm at a loss of words, really. But then when it calmed down a little bit, I was enjoying, smelling it sometimes during the day once it settled in. Anyway, so that one's one that wasn't an immediate favorite, but I recognize it has a lot of gravity and a lot of character, and it may be a long-term favorite if I keep trying it and see if I learn to have an appreciation for what it does offer. Well, there we go. Now, what am I going to do right now? Let us see. One of the things I bought at the beauty supply store the other day was this witch hazel, and this is the lavender. This is not the alcohol-free Thayer's, and I did that on purpose because the alcohol-free that I've been using for years, I think you get a better concentration of the witch hazel if you get the kind with alcohol, and so that's why I got this. So I've taken off the little seal now, and then let's put on a generous amount. Now this is not alum, and so you don't have to rinse it off. And this, there's Dickinson's witch hazel, which is, I think it's really a lot of witch hazel, maybe 100% pure witch hazel. Now this has some aloe in it and some other, skin goodies. And so that's probably how it doesn't have as much of that witch hazel funk. We'll see if this calms down. We'll see if this is strong enough to calm down my irritation. This is the lavender, and so I'm curious as to whether I needed to go with the unscented, and so that's why I bought a sample of it. If I need to go with the unscented, or if something classic like lavender. I definitely wasn't going to get rose or anything like that. Then you can take the excess and help your other parts of your face because it's all skin, right? All right, there we go. And then for the scent today, I'll continue to enjoy the labyrinth on my wrists. I won't use an aftershave to do that. Well, all right, so the razor today it's on the aggressive side. It kind of, for me, the irritation kind of builds up at the end. It could be that 90% of that irritation is brought on at that third pass. So skipping that could make this a friendly razor. I might do that in the future. The Gillette Platinum cut really well with this razor. I don't think the blade is an aggressive blade that often is a problem for me, and so I don't think it's the blade's fault. I think this is just kind of an aggressive razor. It's the safety bars help it to not be crazy aggressive, but I think in the end it's at least for me, it's an aggressive razor. I was happy that quarter teaspoon, roughly, a little bit more, was all I needed for Barrister and Mann with the Omnibus. I'll figure out what Omnibus scent I might want to have. I do want to have a tub at some point. I don't feel urgency about that because I've got so much Barrister and Mann as it is, but I'll wait maybe on a used tub to come across on the market and pick it up at half price or something like that, Maybe that's what will happen. I've definitely got plenty of Barrister and Mann Joy soaps to last me until then. Brush did wonderful. It did great. I was starting to feel a little bit more of the tips than usual, but that was just because my lather was on the thinner side than what I've experienced in the past. So it continues to be very enjoyable. The tips are just wonderfully soft, not super jelly. It's more of a natural softness. And then you can see how easily it splays and moves with me as I'm working it. Lots of density there, but it doesn't get in the way. Maybe these are finer fibers than he's used in the past. I don't know. But I love the way that it's not giving me a lot of backbone due to that density. So, thank you, Walden, for getting a chance to try out this razor. It definitely had me intrigued, and several people that I respect a lot were saying, "Hey, man, I know this doesn't have a lot of grip on the bottom, like you like with Carve razors and Wolfman and some others. But this thing is really kind of mild to me, and I find it really comfortable. You might really like it. So a few people like that sent me messages to that effect, and so I'm very glad to have the opportunity to try it out. And next time maybe we'll stop at 2 passes and see how the comfort level is with this one. Well, there we go. That's today's shave. I hope there was something in here to help you out in your shaving journey. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care now. Happy holidays.